This is a pretty interesting poll that comes out of ABC News, and it is maybe I think it's the lowest a president approval rating has ever been since we started the polling process. What we saw is that Donald Trump's taking a 8-point lead,
which is surprising,
over Joe
against
Biden.
the sitting president. I mean, that's telling, and I think that's the pain of the economy. I think it's global affairs are in.
And 68% say he's just too old. This is not just Republicans, by the way. This is Republicans and Democrats who are
an
polling
ABC
here.
Washington Post poll
saying almost 70% of people who are just concerned about his age. They're not concerned about whether they're going to vote Republican or Democrat. They likely would still get in there and vote for it, but they're just concerned about him making it through effectively another 4 years.
You know, it's interesting, Harry, this early out. I mean, we're pretty early. We're a year and 2 months from a year and 3 months from an election, but we're getting into primary season. That's starting this summer. I mean, it starts the summer before. I mean, the election's in 2024, but the primaries start in 2023, usually a little bit later in the year. And the first early primaries are in January and February, but you got the straw poll and the Iowa State Fair and all that's coming up. Yeah. It's interesting there's that kind of gap. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if you look at it, this is a hypothetical, obviously, if it was Trump and Biden right now, heading into, obviously, November 2024, 44% of Americans said they definitely or probably vote for Trump, and 38% said they would vote for Biden. That's with a 12% undecided. And most of those were leaning over Trump for the undecided vote. So again, you don't see these kind of polls this far out typically.
Unusual.
Where there's this extreme of a difference unless it's a long shot candidate that's not going to make it.
Interesting would be to historically what the polls were like for Jimmy Carter against Reagan. Now, this is, Trump's not the nominee yet. I mean, he's the leading Republican.
He's the leading Republican candidate by a mile at this point. I mean, it's
by like 20 or 30
It would
points.
be a heck of a run from any of the people who are currently announced, even people who aren't currently announced, to really put up a fight. And I don't like saying that necessarily because I want to see fresh people in there. I really think it would have been interesting to not have Biden and not have Trump and have two new people to represent the parties.
That's not where it's going to be.
That is looking more and more unlikely as time moves on. But I think there's more of a chance that Biden isn't the person than there is Trump isn't the candidate.
I think that's very possible. I think you're not going to know who they are until they are the nominee. I mean, that is the truth. But it is interesting this far out to see this kind of disapproval ratings. And I think a lot of it has to do with, Harry, the economic situation when we talked about that on the broadcast yesterday, this kind of feeling of unease in a geopolitical sense. I think all of that.
I think you're correct. So if you add in the banking crisis, if you add in the energy crisis, if you add in President Biden's mental acuity, it is clear that President Biden faces headwinds. But Trump's lead in the poll results are absolutely stunning because Donald Trump faces many legal headwinds. Many of them are front and center, but people are still, right now at least, supporting Trump over Biden. I also think that one of the drags on the Biden presidency and his campaign is that things are beginning to catch up with him internally, including Kamala Harris and her poor performance, Karine Jean-Pierre and her poor performance. And so I think all of these things are combining to basically place a huge weight on the Biden presidency.
But let's just rapidly go through some of these poll numbers. I think we should. 56% of Americans disapprove of Biden's performance as president. Again, this is coming from ABC News. Only 36% approve. 54% of Americans think Trump did a better job in handling the economy. Only 36% think Biden is doing a better job. That's a big one, as we know, as we've seen in our internal polling here, even internal research and some of the external research that we get due to this broadcast and other things we do, that the economy is number one.
Always.
Right now, everything else, if you're seeing social issues and those things that we typically talk about on this broadcast, simply right now people are worried about themselves, as they should be in some ways, because they're seeing the chaos break out around them. And I think that is where you have a potential for a real shakeup come next November. They said a Trump-Biden rematch. 44% of Americans said they would definitely or probably vote for Trump, and only 38% said they would definitely probably vote for Biden. 54% of Americans think Joe Biden is not trustworthy. 63% of Americans don't think Biden has the mental sharpness it takes to serve effectively as president, and 62% don't think his physical health is good enough to serve effectively.
I mean,
and oddly, because they're not that different in age.
No, but there's an energy level.
There is.
difference.
54% of Americans think Trump has the mental sharpness it takes to serve effectively as president. 64% think he's in good enough physical health to serve effectively.
Did a majority think he should be held guilty?
Yes, and then a majority of it said, though we'd vote for him, we think he should be held liable for criminal activity. So it is a bit of a mess. And obviously you're asking these people who are doing the poll, I'm not sure exactly what the sample size was, 100 questions. And it can kind of skew a little bit. But this is at the margin of error at this point.